Today on the LA Food Podcast, I'm your host Lucas Servodio, bringing you our foxiest episode to date, and you'll understand how bad that joke is in just a moment, dear listener. Chef Jeremy Fox is with us on the podcast today, best known in Los Angeles for helming the widely acclaimed restaurants Rustic Canyon and Birdie G's. Chef Fox joins us to walk through his illustrious career from his days at David Kinch's Manresa in Los Gatos to earning a Michelin star for a vegetarian restaurant attached to a yoga studio in Napa Valley. He talks about how an impounded car led him to move to Southern California and his very personal inspiration for opening Birdie G's, his Santa Monica restaurant that he describes as the product of an Eastern European Jew who grew up in the Midwest and settled down in California by way of the American South. Now there's a journey. What I really appreciated about my conversation with Chef Fox, however, is how candid and emotionally honest he gets. We hear about the frustrations of struggling to get butts in seats despite receiving the highest accolades in the industry, and the tension between feeling like you need public recognition to succeed when you'd rather be behind the scenes honing your craft and doing what you love. There's a fascinating story about how the Stanley Tucci movie Big Night inspired him to pursue the culinary world as a career, and a hilarious anecdote that explains why he'll never, ever, ever serve lamb to Alain Passard. Finally, Chef Fox tells us about the upcoming 8 Nights at Birdie G's, an annual Hanukkah-ish dinner series featuring acclaimed guest chefs from around the country, collaborating to produce some truly memorable meals. The dinner series is sold out, but you can still join the waitlist on Resy. So, before you listen to the interview, I'd highly recommend heading to the Resy app and switching on that notify button. You won't want to miss it, dear listener. That's probably enough of an intro for today, so without further ado, let's chow down. Joining us today on the LA Food Podcast, he's the award-winning chef and owner of Birdie G's and Michelin-starred Rustic Canyon in Santa Monica. You also might know him from his acclaimed book on vegetables, his many James Beard Award nominations, or from his past lives at Ubuntu in Napa and Manresa in Los Gatos. It's Chef Jeremy Fox. Chef, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can't complain. Where are you calling us from today?
I'm calling from the lounge at Rustic Canyon restaurant.
Oh, okay. So I understand you're getting ready for another service tonight.
Yep, we have a nice dinner service tonight in 2.5 hours, and kitchen's in there getting ready, and they'll be meeting out here in the dining room for a little pre-shift action any minute.
So it's a little bit like calm before the storm right now?
It is, yeah. I don't know. Hopefully it'll be stormy tonight. A little bit of storm is good.
Yeah, totally. You want the right amount of storm. Let me start with asking you something we ask all our guests just to, get it going. And we'd love to know this from people who work in food. But what did you have for lunch today, Chef?
Haven't really had lunch. I had a late breakfast. My wife picked up some peanut butter cookies from friends and family. There was this a new Nancy Silverton cookbook called The Best Cookie I Ever Ate, and it's about other things, but the best cookie she ever ate is the peanut butter cookie from friends and family. So she wanted to see what all the hype was about.
She said in her book that that's the best peanut butter cookie she's ever eaten?
Yeah, the best cookie she's ever eaten, and that's what kind of, I guess, sparked writing the book about some other things. But I'm not surprised. Roxana is amazing.
And your take is, yes, that is a great cookie.
It's a great cookie. I'm not going to say it's the best cookie I've ever had, but it's a really good cookie.
What cookie keeps you up at night?
I'm actually of the belief that a cookie is ruined by cooking it.
Oh, interesting. Oh, so you're a cookie dough kind of guy.
I'm a cookie dough guy, and I like my ice cream melted. Yeah, so to me, the worst things you can do is cook a cookie and freeze an ice cream.
That's a great take, honestly. We are talking about childish foods right now, cookie dough. So a good place to start here is, were you into food as a kid, Chef?
I wasn't really into food. I was raised on mostly fast food and frozen food. So I have, and I'm not complaining about that. I have really fond memories, like, TV dinners are really nostalgic for me, and I still have kind of a natural love for them, for frozen food, for fast food. I wish I didn't, but they just because my metabolism has slowed down as I gotten older. But that is the food that really made me enjoy food, and I'm always trying to kind of hit those notes through what I'm cooking. Trying to hit the comfort you get from something like that, and it's not even the food; it's like the experience of like sitting down in front of the TV when you're a kid with a platter that has Salisbury steak and a brownie in it, and whatever else is in the container. I still love that.
Do you still find yourself gravitating towards any specific frozen meals or fast food restaurants?
I don't eat much frozen food. I try not to eat much fast food either. I think my go-to is either McDonald's or Wendy's. Not a big In-N-Out guy.
Hot take.
The fries aren't good, so it's like the burgers aren't good enough to outweigh the fact that the fries are not good. They're the freshest fries you can get in fast food. They're just not good.
Yeah, fresh does not always equals good, it turns out. That's interesting. So I understand from reading about you that one of the things that got you excited about food was the movie Big Night featuring Stanley Tucci. Is that right?
Yes. I had always been interested in restaurants and thought that maybe I wanted to have restaurants. And I by the time I saw Big Night, I had worked at Chick-fil-A. I had been a waiter at restaurants. I'd been a dishwasher, busser, every position. But I saw that movie, and like 2 weeks later, I had an orientation for Johnson and Wales Culinary School, and a month and a half later, I was in Charleston starting school.
That's really interesting to me because I saw Big Night for the first time recently, actually. I'd read about it. I knew the important sort of role it played in the culinary world. But while I was watching it, I was like, I'm not sure how anybody could watch this and want to go into this business. What about it like really got you excited?
I think it was the scene of like the kind of the montage of the whole meal when it happens, and how much it affected people. They had, by the time like the meal was progressing, they'd eaten too much, they drink too much, they were lying down on the table, some were singing, some were sleeping, and then the omelet scene at the end, where there's no talking, but it literally is the power of food, and how it corresponds to emotions is just right there in front of you. And I thought, I want to have that kind of effect. Like, I was 20. I was in college as thinking I would be an English teacher, or something. Wasn't sure. And I didn't know if, at that age, I would have hoped that something I do when I'm older would have a positive effect on someone. And how many jobs are there that have that opportunity? And there's not a lot where you can really, you can make someone's day better, or if you do a bad job, you can make it worse.
Have you had moments in your career where you are looking around and you kind of are like, hey, this feels a little bit like that scene in Big Night where everyone's happy and singing and holding hands and things like that?
I think every time someone gives me a compliment, which I'm not good with, I think about that. But there was years ago when I was the chef at a vegetarian restaurant called Ubuntu. there's a community table there that seated 20 something people, and we had a party and family style food for them, and we sent out these like big like cassoulets in ceramic braziers, and they all like saw it and they started clapping and standing up, and then the rest of the restaurant, I guess, seeing that a bunch of people were standing up and clapping, all stood up and clapped. So there's like 110 people in this restaurant just standing up and clapping. And I just I wanted to disappear and burrow into a hole, but that was a really weird moment to have that happen.
That's really cool. I mean, I've never seen anything happen like that. Was it a tasting menu where people were eating the same thing?
Yeah. Well, for the family, for the communal table, they were actually yoga students who came down from the yoga studio on the second floor, and we had a special menu for them. So they were really, jazzed about what they had, and I guess the group mentality and the entire restaurant was just standing up, gave a standing ovation, and it was just really uncomfortable and odd. But also something slightly cool about it that, yeah.
I think it sounds awesome personally. I mean, I receive compliments. I like to receive compliments. So to me, that sounds great, but I've never, having seen that in a restaurant, I can also see how it would feel a little out of place when you're not expecting it all the time. It is actually making me think of when people clap for pilots when they land the plane. It's like, yeah, you know what? We should be clapping. This is an incredible thing this pilot has just done, but it's just, they do it all the time.
Yeah. I have it's like an inside joke with me, but when someone says like, oh, it was because a chef did this to me once, but someone will say, oh, check out the sauce I made. I was like, I'm not going to commend you for doing your job. It's a joke, but I kind of think of that with pilots. Like, yeah, you're supposed to land the plane.
Yeah, totally. I hear
flying.
that. My wife hates it too. So I feel like it's also like, I've caught it. I've somehow caught the anxiety of flying because it's contagious, But yeah, thanks for doing your job, pilots, and making our flight safe. Do with that what you will. But you touched on this earlier about your time cooking in the American South after culinary school, and then you came out to California, right, to work in the Bay Area. And to me, that seems like quite a big change. What attracted you about coming to California, and what really struck you when you got here?
When I was in culinary school in Charleston, South Carolina, this was the time of the Charlie Trotter books, and there was the Charlie Trotter vegetable book, and there were so many specific varietals of produce in there. It wasn't just like a beet and goat cheese thing. It was like a Ruby Queen beet. So everything had like a specific variety, and I was lucky enough to work with a great chef in Charleston named Mike Latta, who has two great restaurants there. One is Fig, that's been there for over 20 years now. But he was probably most instrumental in Charleston with the farm to table ethos, and we constantly had farmers coming by and themselves and dropping off their ingredients, and I was starting to see the Ruby Queen beets, the Silver Queen corn, all these specific things. And by the end of my time there, I had worked with all the vegetables in that book, and then I moved back to Atlanta for a few years. But there was an issue, and I believe it was 2001, of Sabor that was on California specifically. The whole issue was on California, and there was kind of an outline of a meal that was cooked by, it's like Alice Waters, Paul Bertoli from Oliveto. I just really became enamored with how close all the ingredients I was using in Atlanta a lot of them were from California, especially asparagus, things like that. And I just became, like I said, enamored of the San Francisco Bay Area food scene and how in touch with the produce and the relationships with the farmers. I decided to, at 25, to move there to San Francisco in 2001. I arrived 2 days before 9/11, which is a really weird time for any city. I just really wanted to go where the ingredients were. I literally, when I was 25 years old, thought green garlic was just green cloves of garlic. I just didn't know. I don't know. Maybe it just wasn't what I had imagined it would be. Or, I definitely had a romantic idea of moving to San Francisco and it being a certain thing. And maybe just it wasn't. So I got antsy, I guess.
Totally. So how did you end up from that experience to Manresa?
So I hopped around a little bit. I got a job. I was working at Rubicon, which is a great restaurant. It's had some great chefs. I was there for about 6 months, and then I worked at Charles Nob Hill for Melissa Perello, who's got some great restaurants in San Francisco right now. And then I got a job as the chef of a hotel in Aspen. So I moved to Aspen. I was there for maybe 6 months. It didn't go very well. I moved back with who's now my ex-wife, but we're still friends. She actually did the desserts for Birdie G's.
No way.
But we were living in Sunnyvale, and that month the SF magazine restaurant review was of Manresa because it had just opened, 8 months earlier, maybe 6 months earlier. And I was, again, kind of like seeing that Savor issue of California. I was like, I want to work at this restaurant. So I arranged the stage and loved it. I staged a couple more times. And there was a day where I couldn't get David on the phone to see if I could come stage, but I just showed up anyway. And that day someone had no call, no showed, and that was their last chance. So by showing up, I got a job.
Wow.
And I stayed there for almost 5 years.
So that was a long stint for you at that point in your career.
I was at Anson in Charleston for about 2 years while I was in school, and then I was at one restaurant, Mumbo Jumbo, in Atlanta for 2.5 years. So I had like some long stints with a flurry of shorter stints in there. I think that's kind of, I definitely advise against it, but I think it's sometimes important to find the right fit and to know when it's not working. But I knew I felt really lucky to have gotten the job at Manresa, and I decided to go all in. I had become the chef of a hotel, and realized that, I was not the chef that I want to be, that I'm nowhere near it. And then if I just go on from chef position to chef position, I'm not going to be happy. I want to know more things. I want to be better. And I stayed at Manresa because there was, unless it was, being the chef of my own restaurant, there was nowhere else to go. There was nowhere better. There was nowhere I thought I wanted to go. I was happy there.
I was going to say, it sounds like you were learning, like you were still building skills, and you were getting something valuable there.
I was learning a lot. I was working with who are now some of the great chefs in this country. When we were just cooks, and I could tell that the people I was around were, they were better than me, um, I wanted to move like them and cook like them and kind of get that choreography down. I kind of worked some high volume places, so I was a little kind of spastic. So I wanted to learn how to kind of slow down and speed up. And between working for David Kinch and the other cooks that were there, it was such an educational time.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, it's probably an impossible thing to answer, but you cite David Kinch as a mentor, and I'm curious, what's something that you learned in those Manresa days that sticks with you to this day?
I think there's a lot. I think, there's things as big as, how to work with a team and how to kind of, how to instill a collaborative nature amongst the staff, amongst the team, that is not about competing against each other. It's about everyone pushing each other to be better. I had worked at places where there was a lot of hazing when new people started, and there was a little bit of that from a couple people, but it was the way David brought you into the system, so you knew like how the menu was working and how the ingredients were working and why this was this way, and wanted your input, wanted you to have ownership in your station in terms of ordering. He taught me that. There's things like menu, how to write a menu, like the actual like menu speak, I think is what we called it, about how to word things so it's not just this with this and this and this with this and this. It was a little bit more poetic.
What's an example?
So you can say, like, let's say on the menu there's John Dory with leeks and potato. There might be a dish that says John Dory with leeks and potato. Then there might be right under it lamb, carrots, and curry, comma, strained yogurt. Like it didn't all follow the same template.
Yeah, got it. So basically, like making it so that it accurately captured the dish, regardless of the template, kind of.
Exactly, and I don't know. I liked the inconsistent descriptions. It felt soulful to me. Still does.
If I'm not mistaken, Ubuntu in Napa is where you sort of went out on your own after Manresa. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's correct. That was my first chef job, first executive chef job.
And what spurred the decision to leave Manresa? When did you know you were ready to take on that helm?
So it's kind of funny, and I don't know if I've really gone over like the reasons why I left. The reasons I put in motion leaving, though it took several months, was Alain Passard came and from Arpège in Paris, came and cooked a few nights at Manresa as a guest chef, and I did not care for the experience. I don't know Alain other than working with him those few days, but it just wasn't a great experience. And David and I got in this huge fight on the last night because it was kind of known that Alain Passard doesn't like lamb. And at the end of the night, they all sat down for dinner, and I was told no lamb, and I knew that, no lamb. But the server came back and said that David wants him to have the lamb. And I said, "Are you sure?" I was told no lamb. He was like, "He told me to tell you he wants the lamb." And so we sent the lamb out, and David was not happy. Where we were in the office screaming at each other. I think the cooks were out in the parking lot kind of listening, trying to hear it. But it was just a dumb situation, but it was kind of the catalyst for me to be like, I think it might be time for me to move on.
So that was a server misunderstanding or what? What happened there?
I guess so. I guess it was a server misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
he
One
said
thing
no
led to
lamb.
another.
I shouldn't have sent lamb, but I did, and that's how life turns out.
And so, okay, just to get you sending out the lamb, right? And Alain doesn't like lamb. So if if he receives the lamb when David doesn't know that, when David knows that he doesn't want the lamb, is that almost just like a sign of bad hospitality, or what is like why is it such a faux pas for David?
I I assume that maybe, through his relationship with him, that he knew that lamb was like an affront. That's what it kind of felt like. So it's all a little blurry, but all I remember is, just those few days not really enjoying it. And maybe that's why, I haven't gone really the fine dining route. I've stayed pretty casual throughout my career. Because I think that was like my final, like, fine dining. I don't want to do this.
Totally. So you kind of did go a very different route with Ubuntu and Napa. As you said, was it vegetarian or vegetable forward, really?
It was vegetarian.
Vegetarian, and it was attached to a yoga studio, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
so
yoga studio was on the mezzanine. Beautiful space. It was a beautiful, all reclaimed wood, sustainable materials. It was gorgeous. And it had its own dedicated farm on the property of the owner. That was biodynamic and that was large enough to grow a really significant portion of the produce for the restaurant and grow things that you couldn't get anywhere. And I'd gotten a taste of that in Manresa because my last year and a half there, we had been working exclusively with a Love Apple farm, which for many years supplied the restaurant. So I had become, whereas when I was most of my time at Manresa, I was obsessed with pigs and pork and cooking pork. I really got into the vegetable game and saw a lot of, while I thought I knew a lot of different kinds of vegetables, I found out that there was a ton more that I didn't know, that I was seeing as it was growing. And I like treasured those things like jewels.
Yeah. There seems to be a theme that I'm picking up on is wherever there's an opportunity to learn something, it seems like you're attracted to that. So I want to ask this because it's something that I've always been curious about, but you famously led Ubuntu to its Michelin star, right? And I'm always curious about how that actually works. And this may be an extremely dumb question, but when you first got to the helm of Ubuntu, is the Michelin star something you as a business are setting out to accomplish, or is it something that just happens?
No, I had no aspirations of a Michelin star. Moving to Napa, which is a small town. It's at the time I think the population was 70,000. And I lived 2 blocks from the restaurant. That was my attempt at getting out of the rat race and, slowing down. So yeah, I did not plan on a Michelin star. It took until my second year to get that. And even then it was a surprise because our check average was $40. We were probably the least expensive Michelin starred restaurant. And I guess it didn't seem possible to me that our little vegetarian restaurant would garner such an accolade. But in 2009, we we did receive the star, and which was great. But what was really special about that day is that two of my best friends also received their first Michelin stars that day. So it was cool because the three of us all got it, and it wasn't like one of us didn't get it. So we had to be like, "Oh, I'm sorry," like we all got it. So it was like it was pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's not one of those situations where you have to be to the third guy like, it's not that great, man. Don't worry about it. It's overrated.
Right.
You actually got to celebrate it together.
Yeah, that was really special.
That's cool. That's really cool. And so, you talk about the 2009 Michelin star. You got other incredible accolades with Ubuntu, including New York Times named you one of the best restaurants in America at some point, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Jonathan Gold wrote really nice things or said really nice things at some point. Yet in your book on vegetables, you also talk about how there was a difficulty of actually getting butts in seats to use a not so glamorous term. What does that feel like for you as a chef? Like to get these accolades, but then to not be getting sort of the foot traffic or the people that you expect to get when you have those kinds of accolades.
It's frustrating, and I wish I could say that wasn't still the case, but I do still feel that way. Both of my restaurants, Rustic Canyon and Birdie G's, definitely need to be busier. Can stand to be busier, have the space to be busier. So it does give me kind of a love-hate relationship with any kind of attention or accolades, because there's part of me that wants to just be left alone. But there's the part of me that knows that certain accolades should help with business, though they don't always, unfortunately. I don't know. My wife says with me and the kind of the attention, it's like, fuck you, leave me alone. Fuck you, leave me alone. Pay attention to me. Fuck you. Pay attention to me. Leave me alone. Pay attention to me. So I think that's definitely part of it.
Yeah. Well, you've spoken about that a little bit, sort of this jarring effect of suddenly being in the spotlight when you're maybe not someone who necessarily wants the spotlight. You talked about your difficulty in just like receiving compliments, so let alone like being on TV or something like that. It must feel pretty unnatural. How did you deal with that?
Well, I think you'd be very hard pressed to find much of me on video if you were to scour the internet. I did a little Vitamix commercial video at Ubuntu. I did Martha Stewart towards the end of my time there, and I did Mind of a Chef. I did a couple things of Mind of a Chef with David Kinch when he invited me up, but that's really it. I have not done TV. Is not something I have been interested in or think I would be good at. Although I will say, we not long after Birdie G's opened, they filmed an episode of Top Chef at Birdie G's, and I was the guest judge.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is going to be great. It's like the episode is at Birdie G's. I'm on the judges table. It's gonna get us so busy. And the episode aired in April 2020, so it had zero impact on business whatsoever.
It was a good season, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like, okay, whoop-de-doo, now nobody can even come to Birdie G's because everything's closed. So speaking of Birdie G's, I'm curious about how you ended up joining us down here in Southern California.
Basically, it was out of necessity. I had kind of towards the end of my time at Ubuntu, and then for the next couple of years, I was kind of in a 2 or 3 year long nervous breakdown. And I moved to LA to consult on the opening of a kind of a gastro bar called Freddie Smalls, because I was living in Oakland, subletting an apartment in Oakland, and I came out one night and my car was gone, and I thought it was stolen, but it had been impounded because I hadn't paid the registration. But I had to be at an event in Las Vegas, so I rented a car to go do the event, but I couldn't afford to get my car out of impound, which meant I also couldn't afford to return the rental car, because as soon as I returned the rental car, it would charge my account. So I was kind of in this limbo where I kept racking up rental car charges and impounding fees. And Roy Choi, who's a great guy, he introduced me to the guy who was opening Freddie Smalls and got me that job. And part of it was I needed advance to take this job to return the rental car and get my car back. So that's the romantic route I took to move to Los Angeles.
Hey, whatever got you down here, we're just grateful you're here. I wanted to ask something about Northern California versus Southern California, because while I think there's a bit of a changing shift, and we're seeing restaurants like yours and like really pave the way for some of this, but there's obviously other restaurants too, and like Josiah Citron's restaurants. There's also Providence, obviously Addison, further south. But for a long time, I think people have considered Northern California to be the place to be for like the more fine dining scene. And Southern California has been looked down on a little bit. I'm curious, A, do you agree with that perception? But B, if so, why do you think that is?
Well, I think for so long, LA restaurants were considered too sceney. I think everyone thought that they were all like Spago, which I love Spago. They do such a great job, but there weren't that many small like neighborhood chef driven restaurants. And I think Animal was kind of the paradigm shift, as far as I could tell, in LA in terms of more chef driven restaurants. I think having someone like Jonathan Gold writing about the food in your city really helps give some credibility. He turned his spotlight on a lot of different kinds of food, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different price points. So I think he had something to do with it. I think just the diversity of Los Angeles has over the years made this beautiful melting pot where now these chef-driven restaurants are not just what the usual was, were like Cal Italian. There's a lot of different new viewpoints of cuisine. And I think the diners in LA became more interested in chefs' voices, and not just kind of the luxury ingredients or the luxury experience, and became, I guess, also interested in ingredients and organics, and make sure that what they're putting in their bodies is good for them. Yeah.
So we've kind of seen change amongst everything. It's been the culture for the chefs with Animal and creating this culture of more chef-driven cuisine here. It's the diners expecting it more. It's the food media increasing the profile. Yeah, it's been really cool to watch. And now, I don't know if you'd agree, but I think LA is considered widely one of the better food cities in America to eat in.
Oh, it for sure is. Its reputation has changed, pretty drastically since I've been here about 12 years. There's new restaurants opening up all the time, and they're all each time they're raising the bar for just great restaurants at all different price points.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Birdie G's a little bit because I'm really, really fascinated with this restaurant. What prompted the opening of Birdie G's?
Birdie G's kind of was the culmination of me finally being able to open a restaurant and be a part of everything from the beginning. Picking out the floors and the tiles and where this is going to go. I think at some point I had been at Rustic for about 5 years, and I wanted to do more. I wanted something else to work on. I had great staff that I wanted to be able to promote, and unless there was another project, I couldn't do it. So, Josh Loeb, my business partner, we started looking at spaces probably in 2015, 2016. Mm-hmm. And found a few spaces, and then we found the space where we are, and I knew right then this is where it needs to be. And even then it took about a year to get a lease signed, and then 2 years for construction. So it was quite, it took a while, but it was, an amazing kitchen. It had had ovens I didn't know how to use that were, smarter than me. But I wanted to do kind of a bigger scale American restaurant that kind of outlined my weird path through, being born in the Midwest, a Midwestern Jew who grows up in the South and then comes to California. Wanted to kind of capture that in one restaurant. And, there was a little bit of retro aspect to it. I think that was picked up a little bit too heavily by media. Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, it was a California restaurant with a lot of outside influences, but I think when we opened, there were a little bit too many outside influences. And it was a ginormous menu. So we had to kind of tone it down. And, I think we focused it over the years as kind of a California / Eastern European, brasserie.
Yeah.
I find, as a, Eastern European Jew, and I think as my parents got older, I wanted to I think everyone kind of wants to find their heritage, and, my background is Hungarian and Ukrainian, but also, Polish, German, and there was a lot for me to research on foods of Eastern Europe, and even great pork dishes, and I found a lot of inspiration, and I found that around the same time there were a lot of kind of Jewish places opening, and mm-hmm. To me they felt more like caricatures of Jewish food. Like making it kind of comical of like play on words, and it didn't really feel like serious, I don't know, like a respectful, serious ode to Jewish cuisine.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, like, I hear what you're saying with the media's characterization of Birdie G when it first opened, because I do remember that nostalgic angle really being played up. But now when you look it up, there are a lot of mentions of it being Eastern European forward, or paying homage to that in some way. What is a dish on the menu that you think really encapsulates like what Birdie G's style is?
I think it changes, because the menu there changes quite often. There are some certain staples. I mean, I'll tell you what my favorite dish is lamb a la salis. A la salis, it's a made up thing. It's named after a friend of mine, Cameron. That's his last name. But it's a dish that's been on the menu since day one, and it's like a fatty lamb loin that's marinated in reduced beet juice and rose water and garlic, rosemary. It's grilled, and then it's served with like a Persian spice mix with lots of fenugreek and Persian lime,
Mm.
with saffron yogurt and like this crispy rice with lots of dill. And I think that really encapsulates the restaurant, where it's personal because it's named after a friend of mine and kind of a specific meal that we had at this place, Rafi's in Glendale,
Yeah.
and that it borrows something from the Persian cuisine, but it also could easily be an Eastern European dish on its own. Yeah, that dish will probably never change.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And one thing that for sure will never happen is Alain Passard will never order it, right?
If he does, I'm not going to send it because I'm not falling into that trap again.
That's hilarious. I think there are some stereotypes out there with Eastern European cuisine, and I'm curious what you think maybe people misunderstand when they think about it.
What would you say are the misconceptions?
So to me, I think some people, like if I were to think about the stereotypes of Eastern European cuisine, are like pretty one note meat and potatoes, hard to elevate. I think when people think about it, I don't know that the word like refined comes to their mind or anything like that, right? Or complex even. And I don't know that that's necessarily true.
I would say I wouldn't say not being complex describes, because I think there's a lot of spices and a lot of kind of slow cooking processes in Eastern European cuisine, at least as I see it. But I do see, it is really made for comfort and really sustenance. And I can read a recipe, like an old recipe that's very, very bare bones and considered peasant food. And I like to be able to see how to change that without straying too far from the inspiration behind it, while making it still an accurate, well, it might be a refined or elevated ode to that dish, that it is still, you can connect the dots a little bit. But also, like, part of what Birdie G's was about was not necessarily recreating the original dish from Eastern Europe, but I'm interested in the dish after the game of telephone that happened as immigrants came over and started cooking with what they had here and then passed that down to the next generation. So it's like my grandmother was cooking recipes that her mother from Hungary made when they were in Hungary, and now they've both been in America and have adapted the recipes to what's available in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And I hear stories from people like that a lot, where this dish really only exists within this one family. Because this was the take on this. I'm interested in those dishes because they're not in any books. They're not in really chronicled by any historians. They're just family recipes that are truly family recipes and are very unique in that way.
Yeah.
So I'm that's what I like to, when people tell me, oh, my grandmother's from Hungary, she used to make this thing, or my grandfather's from here, he used to make this thing, and I'm like, okay, keep talking. Like that's the kind of stuff I want to delve into.
That's awesome. I mean, and anytime you get those special stories associated with the food too, it just gives it a whole other dimension. Well, you talked about how Birdie G's could stand, and Rustic Canyon, you said, could stand to be a little busier, but it sounds like you've got some pretty busy nights ahead with 8 nights at Birdie G's. Can you talk real quick about what this series is and what inspired it?
Sure. So this is our second year, so it's still in its infancy, but it was inspired by the 12 days of Christmas dinners at Meadowood that Christopher Costow used to hold every year. And he would invite chefs from all over the world, from locally or all over the world, to do a guest chef dinner. And I participated in 2010 and 2017. And then unfortunately Meadowood burned down. So I got Chris's blessing to do 8 nights at Birdie G's, and he was one of the guest chefs last year. I wanted to do something that was, I don't know, growing up, the world is kind of during December, during the holiday months, pretty much my world is decorated for Christmas everywhere I go. And that's always been the case from when I was a kid to now. Go to the mall, it's not decorated for Hanukkah. It's not decorated for Yom Kippur. So, I wanted to see if there was a way to have an opportunity to have something that could make people like me feel included, and to have something to look, something else to look forward to. I don't ask the chefs to cook Hanukkah food or even Jewish inspired food. It's just about getting some great people together. Last year was great. This year it's a really, really amazing lineup. A lot of good friends, a lot of people I'm excited to cook with. And just to have something that for people like me who were, during the holidays didn't have their holiday that they celebrate, the kind of front and center that it is here, but the restaurant is decorated for Christmas and Hanukkah, like seriously decorated. My GM Keely, we keep upping her budget, but she goes really, really above and beyond with decorating for Halloween, Christmas, Hanukkah, Thanksgiving. It's a really festive time of year in the restaurant, and then these dinners are just kind of like this 2-week hurricane of goodness and fun that kind of go through the restaurant and kind of carry us for a couple months, like put us on a high for a few months of like, wow, that was a lot of fun. Can't wait till next year.
So what are the collabs this year? You don't have to go through all of them, but are there any that you're particularly excited for?
Oh yeah. I'm excited for all of them, and I'm not being coy with that. I put the list together, and I paired up people, but there's anywhere from the kickoff night with Sean Brock, who I've been friends with for years, and we've never gotten to cook together. So to have him coming, the 6th, I'm cooking with 3 of my best friends from San Francisco, James C. Hubbard, Murad Lalu, and Kim Alter. So that's a lot of fun. The 13th is David Kinch. So to be able to cook with my mentor is really special. And then we've got some, great local collaborations with Yangban and Ronan doing I believe it's the last night. I think that's going to be a great pairing. I really love both those places. Mei Lin and John Yao collaborating, and Ari Kolender and Maynard Lara from Kuya Lord. That's going to be it's just
wow,
a really awesome lineup.
What a cool thing. It's like a wonderful celebration of the Los Angeles, and sounds like the culinary scene from other places as well, but really cool idea.
Yeah. Jung Young Park from Atamix in New York is coming. I was just there cooking at Attaboy last month, and they're coming to cook here for the dinner. So it's really, I'm pinching myself that we were able to put this lineup together.
It's amazing.
It's a lot of work, but the team does a great job. They did a great job last year, and it's a big. It is a lot of work for the team to have different chefs come in every night for 2 weeks, but they really roll with it, and everyone's just on such like an adrenaline high.
It's like the run of a play or something. You got to like work up the adrenaline every night, but it's worth it because you get that hit every night. So how can people find more information or get tickets?
They can go to our website, birdiegsla.com. All the dinners are currently sold out, but if you go on Resi and go to Birdie G's through Resi, you can put yourself on a wait list. And as we finalize the seating charts, we may have more seats to open up as we get closer and see what the table configurations are. So if you're on the wait list, Resi will ping you if you're the next one to see if there's a table available, and if so, you can grab it.
Well, I know what I'm doing.
I think I'm not lost.
All is not lost. I know what I'll be doing. I'll definitely be adding myself to the notify list for just about every night, it sounds like. Chef, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Any last things you want to leave our listeners with?
No, come see me. I'm at Rustic Canyon most days, and come to Rustic Canyon, come to Birdie G's, and eat as much as you want and get a little drunk maybe.
Oh, well, you don't have to ask me twice. Chef, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the LA Food Podcast, dear listener. Thanks to our guest, Chef Jeremy Fox. I really appreciate him making the time for us. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I don't know about you, but I'm definitely planning to get on that Resi Notify for 8 nights at Birdie G's, and I hope to see you there, dear listener. If you like what you heard today, please go to wherever you listen to podcasts, leave us a rating, a review, subscribe. Seriously, I'll be so grateful. Those things really help us make our way up the Spotify and the Apple Podcast charts. We'll be back next week with another epic episode, but in the meantime, if you're looking for me, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at the LA Countdown. That's TheLaCountdown. You can also find me on Instagram at LA Food Pod. That's LAFoodPod.